When you move abroad, you often find yourself having to be really open to change, at least if you want a successful experience. New location, new people, new opportunities often require it. This isn't easy for everyone because, quite frankly, most of us are used to having our lives have a certain rhythm. But when you decide to leave the comfort of what you know, you just have to find a new beat to keep it moving. Without a doubt, Mundey Young is the embodiment of this. She is someone who's had a fascinating global life that has been motivated in part by curiosity, opportunity, and a little bit of fearlessness. Her story starts with her multicultural background in Los Angeles, but as you will hear, it quickly becomes an international one. An Air Force veteran, Mundey moved to Europe in 2001, literally right before the September 11th attacks. From the United Kingdom to Australia to her adopted home of France, in every location, Mundey's had to lean in and recreate an adaptable version of herself. In this episode, we talk a lot about that process, how she has found career opportunities, community, and relationships to build a life that works for her. We even discuss how answering a job ad from a well-known astrologer led her into entrepreneurship, as well as the key advice she gives to all of her expat coaching clients. Mundey and I go down quite a few rabbit holes, but trust me, it's worth the colorful trip. Welcome to the Global Chatter.
All right, so we're here with the latest episode of the Global Chatter, and I'm excited to welcome Mundey Young to the spot.
Hey.
I am so excited we've gotten this together because I feel like we sort of formally started speaking to each other only a few weeks ago, and now I'm like, I'm so excited for your story.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I knew you way I was watching, like everybody, in the distance, so I knew, I definitely knew about your podcast from way before.
It feels, when you're doing something, it feels like you're in a fishbowl. Like you can't see the people, because you're coaching everything. So you have a show. So like you're doing this stuff and you're like, oh, it's just me. And then you randomly meet people who go, oh, I've been to your website. Oh, I've been to your podcast. And you're going, I don't know you, but apparently you know more about me. So for everyone who's listening in, I always like to start off, because this is kind of a globally focused show. Tell everyone where you're located.
So I live in Marseille, which is in the south of France.
Which, is it as glamorous as it sounds like, or no?
It does. Like out of my window, I can see the Mediterranean.
Okay.
Yeah. There's literally like 3 beaches, 15-minute walks from my house. So yeah. I mean, there's a reason people want to be here. Sunshine, beaches, the rosé.
Of course. Oh my God. It's what it
the
sounds
month
like.
Off in August,
of course. It sounds like the quintessential when you think about like French holiday, French relaxation, sort of like French way of life.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. Oh my goodness. How long have you lived there?
In Marseille, I've been in Marseille for about 8 years now. Yeah, I've been there for about 8 years. Goes fast.
Well, and I was going to say, I think for our audience, we may need to backtrack, because I feel like you have an incredibly international story. And so can we sort of start from the beginning for the people who don't know you are
so
American?
The beginning of when I started traveling?
Ooh, let's even start. Let's go with that. So, because I've not when you were born, but where were you? Although we could do that. Where were you born and raised?
Okay, so I was born in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and I lived there until I was about 5. And then my mom moved us to Los Angeles, and so I basically grew up in Los Angeles, and spent most of my life in LA. But I would always spend the summers in Jersey because my parents shared custody.
So you grew up in LA, and this is just me projecting, but living in LA, did you grow up kind of in a multicultural environment, or was it more segregated?
Super multicultural. Like, to be honest with you, I was thinking about this the other day. I didn't even really have that many Black friends in school at all. Like, my best friend is Nicaraguan. My 5 closest friends, like from, I would say, 14 until I graduated high school, one was Mexican, one was Colombian, one was from Nicaragua, one was white. We were just like this mix, but LA is just, it's a melting pot of everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what then led you to go abroad for the first time? Did you guys travel when you were a kid, or that wasn't part of your story?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was a nomad, but I would say more in the United States. So I've been to almost every state in the United States. And because my parents, I was spending summers in Jersey and most of the year in
Mhm.
LA, I was East Coast, West Coast. So ever since I was little, so I was always on planes, always traveling. Every summer, me and my dad would get in his car and go around to different states,
Mhm.
to do different stuff. So I was used to traveling from a really young age.
And then when did you take your first international trip?
Gosh, to be honest, I can't even.
I mean, I
My
don't need a
first.
year. We ain't trying to date you, but I'm like saying,
Okay,
like,
I'm
just
like,
like, where did you go? That's really where
why
I should
use
go.
Lane Cone if
Right.
people are just gonna call you out, though? Um, I guess my first international trip would have been when I was about 19. I guess when I joined the military. I guess that's when I finally got on my own and had my own money
Uh-huh.
and could do what I want. Yeah, that was, I would say, around 19.
And so how long were you in the military?
I was in the military for 5 years. I was in the Air Force.
I was going to ask you what branch.
Yeah. I was in the Air Force.
So did that take you? And I know for a lot of people, it does take them international. Did that take you to
They
different
didn't take
places?
me nowhere. They didn't take me nowhere, girl. They took me to an iceberg. They took me to an iceberg. I was stationed 3 years in Alaska. I went from Los Angeles to Alaska. Like when I said, God, please change my life, he was like, okay.
So you went to Alaska? No Italy, no Middle East, no
No,
nothing,
no.
no
I was in a
Guam,
small town called Fairbanks, Alaska.
right?
I think we all know that because that's where what's her name is, who ran for vice president. What is her
Oh,
name?
Sarah Palin,
Sarah Palin. So
right?
I was in Sarah
I'm in the
Palinville, okay?
country, yeah.
Yeah, like
Oh,
three. I went from a city of 3 million people to a town of 3,000, and
wow,
where the
wow.
average temperature, 8 months out of the year is -55. I was like, what?
They didn't take you anywhere glorious. Well, and
Mm-mm.
no, you know what though? For someone from LA, Alaska is different.
Yeah, it is. You have to plug in your cars to keep the oil and all the liquids from
From
freezing just to
freezing.
buy your groceries. You know what I'm saying? Like
My God.
I was not ready. I was not ready.
And so you were there for 3 years, and then did you come back to California, or were you stationed somewhere else in the US?
No, the funny thing is when I was in basic training and I got my orders. Well, they
Mhm.
weren't my official orders. Like I got orders to pull out all of my wisdom teeth. And normally, when they pull out all of your wisdom teeth, is because you are gonna go overseas. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going overseas, and the thing said AK, right? And I had two girls sitting next to me. One girl said, "That's Alaska," and another girl goes, "That's Arkansas." I was like, I don't want to go to either place.
Either
I
one.
went to both places. I spent 3 years in Alaska and my last year and a half in Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas.
I mean, I know we talk about cross-cultural stuff. So you went from LA to Alaska to Arkansas. Because here's what I think for people who aren't American,
Yeah,
this country is massive.
it's huge. You could have a culture shock inside of the United States.
Inside the same state, to be honest, if it's a big enough. No, but you're from
Yeah, sure.
California, right?
Yeah, and California is
Oh my
enormous.
God. And the
Yeah,
Valley? Yeah, no.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if you haven't actually really lived in the US, you don't understand that you could go from one state and go to a different region. It's like 8 countries here.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
so
That's
I'm
true.
actually, so I'm legitimately curious having your California background and also being a kid who was born in the East Coast. What
Yeah.
was then it like living in Arkansas, which apparently the other day I was on TikTok. They said that they were Southern. I was confused because I geographically live in the South, and I'm like,
Yeah,
are you just country or you sorry, because there's a difference. Because you can be country
yeah.
and not be Southern. And
Southern,
so I'm
yeah.
like, are y'all really I don't think y'all when I think Southern, but okay. What was a little rocket for
Okay,
you.
I'm gonna sum it up in one example, right? When I went to Denny's, they had chitlins on the buffet.
Did they really?
That should answer your question, girl.
Okay.
Let it answer it. Let it answer it.
Wow.
They had
Wow.
chitlins on the buffet at Denny's. I was like, Denny's do chitlins? I was like, since
They do in certain places, apparently.
like, since when? Since when? Like when did they start doing chitlins? Like I missed the memo.
They don't do it in LA, which one can understand, but I promise you. I promise you.
I was just like, you couldn't find a baked nothing. Like there was no baked fish, there was no baked chicken. Everything was deep fried. Everything. Deep fried okra, deep fried fish, deep fried chicken. If they could deep fry it, they deep fried it. There was deep fried Snicker bars.
Yes, I was gonna say we do that. We do that here in the state fair. They'll deep fry Snickers bars, Mars bars, cotton candy, like things that should not be Twinkies.
Yeah, because it's not already fattening enough. You know what we're gonna do?
Slap some oil on it. Maybe some butter. Make it taste better.
That. Exactly.
You know, okay, this ain't got nothing to do with nothing, but once again, on TikTok, this is what I saw. Somebody took, I gotta find this, I'm gonna make it, I don't even care. Peach cobbler. Like she made the ingredients.
Why would you ruin a peach cobbler like that, though?
Ma'am, hold on now, hold on. She took the ingredients of peach cobbler, right? The peaches, whatever, made it from scratch. Then put them in egg roll wrappers. Made it so they're like this big, and then deep fried them, and then had this vanilla, like
it do kind of sound good though now, right? Like it got that little crunchy on the outside.
Yes!
You put that vanilla ice cream on top, and that's about to come out. It was like, let me get a taste of that, just a taste though. You probably gained 5 pounds from the first bite.
Looking at it, you gained 5 pounds. But I was like, I'm going to save this TikTok. I'm going to make this mess. Like but think about it though. She was doing it mini, right? If you think about egg roll sizes. And so I was looking at her, I'm like, that woman is somewhere in the South, because who else going to think about how to make a deep fried peach cobbler?
Who got time?
And drizzle it.
Who got time to be thinking about rolling up peach cobbler? Who? Somebody sitting on a porch. Exactly. And we're on porches in the South. She was probably sitting on her porch thinking,
how can I take this cobbler and make it deep fried? So
make it more country. I'll put my foot in this. I'm gonna put my foot in it.
And the black dude, and it was a reaction video. So the black dude who was watching it, first of all, he's funny. He's always like, what's she about to do? What's she about to do? Then he's like, then he said, I need to taste that crunch. He's like, can you mail that? He's talking to can you mail that to me? And I'm looking at him like, you're acting ridiculous, but you know what? That does look kind of good though. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
I would like to taste it too, just to see what it do.
I'm gonna attempt to do this. So we'll see what happens. But so how long? I'm assuming then, because of the military, you were there for a year, and then you got out of Dodge once the moment happened.
What do you mean in Arkansas?
Yeah, because you were there for a year.
Arkansas was the last. I was like, I'm good on this whole, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm good. I'm out. No, I actually decided to get out when I think George Bush became president, the second one.
Right. Because I remember
Republicans, and there's not, it's nothing against him personally, but Republicans normally go to war. And so I got in at the perfect time. Like I was at the Clinton administration, and it was, I had one deployment, for 6 months in the desert. But, after that, all my friends or whoever who stayed in, they had multiple deployments. We were in Afghanistan for a long time. So things changed. So I was like, once we had a Republican president, I was like, I'm good.
and you know what though? And it's right. Now that I think about you saying that would have put you 2000, 2001, right before September 11th. And so that's what would have come down
September 11th when I just arrived in Europe. I was in England, and because I had changed careers, I had decided to become a chef when I got out of the military. I had got a job at the officers club on the base near Cambridge, and we were standing inside of like the break room watching the news as the about the news about the planes hitting the Twin Towers. So I had just arrived in England. I think I had been in England like 2 weeks.
Wow. Wow. I mean, and I think you just kind of led into a really interesting segue. So, you decided while you're in the military that you wanted to shift into a culinary career, or is that something that came a little bit after?
It was before. So before I really loved cooking and I loved having parties. I was catering for
Hmm.
parties and different friends' events. And so I thought, when I was getting out, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I liked things that were sort of intellectual and physical. Like I couldn't
Hmm.
see myself sitting behind a desk. Like I wanted to do something that I would be moving around. And so
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I think, I might enjoy being a chef. So before I got out, I would say the last year, I started working part-time in restaurants before I got out. So in the evening, I had a part-time job in a French restaurant, and I had
Wow.
a part-time job in a soul food restaurant. Because
Wow.
in the States, how we do it, you got 3 jobs. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Maybe four.
Maybe four, maybe four. Yeah.
So then how did that get you to England?
It didn't. I mean, what happened was is that originally when I got out, me and my best friend were in the service together.
Uh-huh.
And we were both supposed to get out together, and we both either wanted to go. We were thinking about moving to Canada or Europe.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I had went to Canada and I visited Vancouver and everything, and it was beautiful, but it was still too American for me. I was like, I
Mhm.
still don't feel like I left the United States. So we
Okay.
wanted to go to Europe, and we were trying to figure out how to do that. And he came home one day and he was like, "Look, they offered me to go wherever I want, plus, a higher position in rank and all this stuff they offered him to try to get him to stay in." And I was
Oh,
like, "Look, you do not have to stay in. I know we want to go to Europe, but, it's not that
yeah.
serious. Like, we could figure out another way." And he was like, "Well, I think I want to be, a nurse anyway, and I'm in public health. I can cross train, and when I get out, I won't have that much studying I need to do." And I said,
Yeah.
"Well, you make that decision." I was like, if that's something you think you want to do, that's great. I'll follow you. We'll follow, because we always stayed together like
Yeah.
thick as thieves. So he decided he wanted to go. He wanted to go. We chose England because we only spoke English, and it was like the quickest place I could work, right? If if
Yeah.
if I followed him.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened.
Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, I hear people getting international all kinds of ways. I think that's
Yeah.
definitely one of the more different the different routes. I mean, think about it. Usually it's they have a job, they have a partner, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's some other reason that's committed to the friendship. I will say that.
Yeah, yeah. My best friend, it's like that's like my gay husband. We were
Yeah.
just inseparable. It was kind of like, I even changed high schools with him. Like my mom he had to change high schools, so my mom let me
Mm,
change high schools with him. He was too old when we were in high school, so he had to go to adult school. So I left high school. I went to adult school with him so I could graduate early.
wow.
Like we were just thick as thieves. That's my ace bone cone.
And I also, when you're younger too, you can make decisions that when you're a little bit older, you might think, okay, I got all this other stuff going on, but that's super cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Now I feel
yeah.
bad. I don't know if I've ever followed my friends anywhere.
Well, it
I mean,
wasn't
they
just
know
one friend. That was my
no,
best friend. You know what
no,
I
that's
mean?
true. That is true.
Right.
That's
That's
your
your
person.
bestie.
That
Yeah, that's your
that's your
person. He's
person.
still my person. Is he? When my dad couldn't come to my wedding when I got married here, it was him who walked me down the aisle.
Oh,
That's my bestie.
does he? Where does he live right now?
He lives in Cali, so he's
He's
a
back in.
nurse. Yeah, he's a nurse at the
Back home.
VA in Los Angeles. Yeah.
So it all worked out because I was like, is he still in
It's
England?
it.
No.
No, 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 no. I think after 4 years he left and I stayed.
And I was gonna say, how long were you in the UK? So you were there for 4 years or so, or five,
I've
or
lived
more?
in the I've lived in the UK twice. So the first time I was there, I guess you could say technically, because I had a place there for a long time. I was technically there, I think, for about 4 years, but 2 years out of that I went to Australia and New Zealand. But
Wow.
my mom and my best friend were in the house that we shared at the time. So I kept the house and my stuff there, but I did take off to
in
Australia, New
other
Zealand.
places?
Yeah.
So for the globally curious, I want to hear a little bit about that. You were in the UK. So what were you doing in the UK professionally, and then how did you get to go to Australia and New Zealand?
Well, I was a chef, so I
Mm,
like, God bless it. Like, I arrived, and like soon as I drove in, like where
hmm
he had to check into the base, the officers club was looking for a chef. Now, I had
Wow.
already been working for about a year part-time as a commie chef, right? So
hmm
I just went in, and I had a job 2 weeks later. And
Nice.
so I was working there. And then because I didn't have enough experience to be hired into a hotel yet, what I did is I went to apply for like chef agency. So I was like a part-time chef. So that was excellent because I got to see so many different
Mm,
venues and different ways of cooking. So like I was in pubs, I was at golf courses, I was in hotels, I was everywhere as a part-time chef, and I think I did that for the first 2 years and I made mad money. It was awesome. I
yeah.
should have never actually changed that. But I was focused on, becoming a sous chef and working in a
hmm
proper fine dining restaurant, and that was the goal. And I would say at the end of about 2 years, I was ready, and I got my first position finally in a French fine dining restaurant in Cambridgeshire.
Wow. Okay. And then what then made the jump for you to be able to go to Australia and New Zealand? Was it being a chef?
So at that point, I started working in at some point when I started working in fine dining, it wasn't it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Mm,
I was working 6 days a week.
yeah.
I was working split shifts. I didn't see my friends. I literally just didn't have any life. And even though I was cooking all this beautiful food, I had no time to actually make beautiful food for myself.
Right.
Right. So it's like I was eating kebabs at the end of my shift. It's like, why is this like this does not make sense? Like
Yeah.
I was like, this is not what I dreamed of. And at that time I met my I guess would be technically my second husband. I think we had been dating about 3 months or something.
hmm
And I was looking to, I wanted to change. I was like, I don't think I can live like this. It was the hours were killing me,
Yeah.
and it kind of sucked out my love for cooking because it was so strenuous. Like there
Yeah.
wasn't that freedom for creativity in fine dining as I wanted. I mean, it is if you're the head chef and you're the
Yeah.
person making the menus, but
Of
I wasn't at
course.
that stage yet.
Yeah.
And so I had met my second husband at that time, and 3 months in, he was like, my job offered me a position to go to New Zealand. He was like, but I don't want to go if you won't go with me. So I was
Mm.
like, we've been dating like 3 months. I was like, I don't know.
Sir, 90 days. It's been 90 days. 90 days. There's a whole show called 90 Days Fiance. 90 days. Just want to know.
See, I was ahead of the
You
game.
were ahead of the curve. You've been ahead of the curve all your life with everything. Okay.
And so, I prayed on it, and I had been praying for, a partner for a while, and he had all the qualities of the type of partner that I wanted.
Mm,
And so I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to go with you. I was like, but I need to have my own bedroom, like just in case this
yeah.
doesn't work out. And I'm keeping my house and I'm keeping all my stuff. And I just want you to know if I feel uncomfortable anytime, I'm going to return home.
Yeah.
But I wanted to leave the job I was in. So it just seemed like a good time to take a break. And initially, I was just going over to see how it was going to be. And it turned out to be great. So I ended up staying. And then we ended up, spending also after that, spending some time in Australia. And then, yeah, that's just how that happened.
Was it New Zealand that you went to first, or was it Australia?
We spent like 3 months in Australia before we went on to New Zealand, and
Okay.
then we went on to New Zealand for a year, and then we went back to Australia for about 6 months.
Okay. So at this point, you obviously have lived in the US, you've lived in the UK, you've moved to Australia, and let's say Australia and New
New
Zealand.
Zealand, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you experience, and all these places are English speaking, right? So did you experience any kind of culture shock going in between, or were there just some nuances that kind of like jumped out?
England, I was just like, what are they talking about? Like, I didn't understand. Like, this was supposed to be English, and I never, I was like,
Right.
I don't understand the slang was so different, and the culture is different. Like when I came, which I'm pretty sure it's still the same, the pub is like the community center.
Right.
Everything happens in the pub. Like if you got an alcohol problem, this is a serious problem because everything happens at the pub. It's like we're going to the
Right.
movies, meet at the pub. We're gonna go to Susan's house later. Let's meet at the pub. After church, we're gonna meet at the pub. Like it is the community center. The kids is there, the priest is there. It was the first time I ever seen a man of the cloth in a bar. Like at the counter. I was like, they do
Sir.
this around here.
Sir.
You know? Because where I lived in Brampton, it was like my house was here. There was a big Church of England next to it, and next to the Church of England was the pub. And so everybody would go like from church to the pub. I was like,
Okay.
okay,
Get your healing. Get your healing where you can get your healing.
Get it where you get it, you know. And you see people in there with their children, because in the States you normally, like, you see kids in a restaurant that has a bar, but you don't see kids in a place that is just a bar. You know what I mean?
You never.
But
see
in
kids
England, it's you know, you have your Sunday roast. You could get like small things to eat. Kids are there, so it's like a community center, you know, but with a bar in it.
With a bar. Wow.
So,
okay.
And their drinking habits are different. You know, they're not cocktails and like getting ice. You know, in the States we love ice. We put ice all the way up to here. You be like, you have to ask for less ice. You be like, can I just get like, can you put my ice on the side, please, so I can see what my beverage actually is?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. You know what? You are so right. I'm thinking about all the places I've traveled, and you're right. You either have to ask for ice.
Yeah.
Or it's just not a thing. Whereas when I was coming back to the States, I'm thinking to myself, we have way too much ice. Like, why do we have so much ice in things? Like, but anyway, I know it's like a weird.
Maybe it's Vanilla's ice. Maybe it's Vanilla's ice fault. Ice, baby. Everybody's like, can I get some?
I don't. And here's the thing. So even when I travel to places, I don't like my water that cold. Like I don't like it that cold. Like I think it's weird, and so
I like my cocktails cold. But they don't do cocktails in pubs. Like you could get like you know, a rum and coke, like a 2-ingredient cocktail. There ain't not like no daiquiris or nothing popping off.
Oh, they're not mixed. no, they're
like
if we can't pour it straight from the bottle, it's not
happening. You know, you should see how they look at you if you order like a soft drink.
Really?
You're like a Coke. You're like, you know, this was at the pub that was next to my house.
The one that's next to the church should be a little bit lenient, but okay. Why?
You know, it's like, Coke? Can I get a Coke? They're like, what's wrong?
Why did you? Like, why did you come here for this? Oh my gosh.
You know, so I guess that was different, and they used to get drunk so early. You know, like
yes.
They eat early, you know, because in the States, everything is open 24 hours a day. And that's what was different about Europe. Like things closed. Yes. There was no 24-hour revolving door at that time. Like the pub shuts at 11:30, you know, and if you're lucky, you know, the pub owner, which I did. So you could do the shut-ins, you know, and when you have the shut-ins, okay, you extended a little bit, but it was just a different lifestyle. It was, you know, it was a different way and rhythm of living. And, you know, they don't have like 6-cylinder cars over there. You don't see that.
Yeah.
You know, gas is by the liter, not the gallon.
Right.
Cost of living is totally different, you know, so everything was different. And even the way people date and think about relationships and love and sex and all of those type of things, you know, because I was single when I moved there. So I was at a huge learning curve for like, how do people date in this country, you know, as compared to the States. So the rules change, you know, from country to country. Yeah. And in Europe, they don't really date. They don't date.
Oh, tell me more. How's it different?
It's not a dating culture. You know, you meet the dude at the pub. Probably.
Right. Right. It's the community center.
Exactly. And you just talk to people and you get to know someone, and like, okay, maybe you'll go out to eat. I think the United States with all the movies and stuff has brought in the dating culture, but normally, you're just hanging out with someone, and if you like them, you just keep hanging out. There's not like this official, and like after like 5 days, that's probably your boyfriend. I think that that's changed maybe a little bit now because the American culture has sort of like threw
Yeah.
itself up over everywhere, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and I had to be really careful about that because I wasn't used to that. In LA, people are allergic to relationships. Like you had to be, you had to make somebody sign on a dotted line to be
Right.
clear. We are together, right? Like,
Right.
that's right, right? Like we've been doing this for a while. We holding hands and stuff.
But it's DTRing, right? Defining the relationship. Like that's a very American thing, right? We're like, define this thing. Yeah.
They don't really do that in Europe. They don't really need that. It's a different lifestyle. So I was not used to that. Like you hang out with a dude a couple times and he think he your boyfriend and he posting up and trying to meet his mom. I'm like, whoa, because in the States you meet somebody's mama, it's serious. You know what I'm saying?
Right. If you've met a parent, something is happening. And even regionally too. And I think, and the fact that you even caveated growing up in LA, right?
Yeah.
Even the way maybe relationships handle, but it's still very American though, overall. If you're meeting a parent, you're meeting family.
Yeah.
It's assuming you're taking ownership of this relationship to a certain degree.
Sure. Yeah. It means I'm introducing you to people who are important to me. And I think it's a lot more casual there. And so that was something I really had to get used to. It was something I really had to get used to. And it's just like when I was dating my second husband, he very quickly wanted to introduce me to his family and all his sisters, brothers, and cousins, and I just wasn't used to that. Like from LA, I was definitely not used to that at all. Like you could even think you was in a relationship, but you were not.
Where, just out of curiosity, where was your second husband from? Was he British?
No, he was Dutch.
He was Dutch. Okay. Well, girl, you just introduced a whole nother element to this. Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. We, at this point in this journey, I feel like we've been all around the United States. Yes. We have dabbled on the British Isles, somehow hopped over to Oceania.
Yeah.
And you are currently in France. So
I'm currently in France, yeah. So at the time when me and my second husband, we went to New Zealand and Australia, and then we came back to England. We didn't really want to stay in England. Like we had been there for a while and we kind of just wanted to try something else. And I wanted to go to France. I was in love with French food. And at the time, I was reading a series of books that was called The Olive Farm, written by Carol Drinkwater. Yeah. And it went through the 20 years of her journey of trying to build her life in the south of France. And it wasn't just the rose-colored glasses stuff. It was also the sweat, blood, and tears stuff. And I just fell in love with the south of France through those books. And I wanted that. I wanted that life. And one day he came home. It's always like it's always one day someone comes home and tells me
with a night. Yeah. I'm like, what did he come home and say? I'm almost scared given this far in the story.
So he comes home and he says like he took a meeting with an old colleague and basically they wanted to recruit him for a project in Paris and would he be willing to go? And and he's like,
okay, let me ask you a quick question here. At this point, because obviously you were with the man for 3 months, you moved to Oceania, so you guys were out there together for 2 years, right?
Yeah, we were pretty much gone for 2 years, and then I think we had came back and we had been back for about a year. So I think we had been together about 3 years at this point.
Okay, so when when another move is coming up, it's not like, oh my God, we just moved again. Okay, cool. So a colleague came up and said, Paris.
And he said, I know you've always wanted to go. I had always dreamed of going to the South. I didn't really have any real desire to live in Paris, like in a city. That wasn't really what I was looking for. And he was like, but it would get us there, and he was like, we could work our way down to the South. He's like, think about it. So I was like, okay. And at the time, think I was managing. I had a lot of stuff going on because my mom had cancer, so I think I was like
Mm.
managing a job so that I could be with her during the
Yeah.
daytime and stuff like that. So when she passed away, I think I was ready for a change,
Yeah.
and I was just like, because she had lived with me a bit in England, and I was just like,
Yeah.
I was ready to turn that page when she passed away.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's try it. I was like, it can't hurt. If we don't like it, we just leave. So
Right.
we, yeah.
No, but you know what? I know we're laughing, but there's so many people who are stuck in situations and it never occurs to them that you can actually just get
Just
out of
leave.
it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, because I think
Yeah.
there are people who would hear and go, "Oh my gosh, you make this effort to move to this country. What if it doesn't work out? And what if the country's not a good fit for you? It doesn't mean you should stay there. Like you can actually change your
No.
circumstances."
Well, and you
Yeah.
know what? I was someone who was like very adaptable. Like I had
Yeah.
lots of skills, and I don't need. I'm not the kind of person, like, I think I use what I need to use to get what I want, and then I
Yeah.
pivot it when the space arrives, and I start to create that space where I am. And that's basically what I teach people in my
Yeah.
coaching is like, you have to use each and every opportunity as a stepping stone, not as a place to live. Like it
Yeah.
may just be one of those steps getting you to where it is that you want to go. So I was very flexible, and I always sort of believed in myself that I could, make what I want happen for myself as long as I
Mhm.
stayed open.
Wow.
So I was just willing to see, what it was going to be like. But I was not keen on moving to Paris, actually.
Mm.
I had been to Paris. I visited Paris, and
Okay.
it reminds me of New York. It's like metro stations, it's fast, everybody's busy, everybody's on top of each other. It's a very expensive city.
Yeah.
Um, and I was looking for olive trees and red wine and cheese
Red
and
wine.
laying in a hammock on my house with a pool. Like I wasn't dreaming about being in some small leaky apartment in Paris that cost me $2,000. Like this was not.
Right? Do you know, by the way, do you know who else has got the olive gardens and the red wine and the hammock and all of that stuff?
Who's that?
Tuscany. Tuscany, man. Have you been
Yeah,
have you been to
I haven't
Italy?
been there yet. I've been to
Girl.
Italy. I've done Italy a lot, but I haven't been to Tuscany yet.
Girl, if you Tuscany and Umbria, I don't know. I ended up in some 14th century castle that had been remade into some Airbnb, whatever.
Look at
But
you,
but
girl.
more importantly, when you looked over, all you saw was it was olive gardens, and it was literally that quintessential, like, when I think of
Portugal too.
like romantic Europe. Okay, so when you guys were looking at Paris, was it
It was a
something that was
stepping stone. It was a stepping stone. I
okay?
mean, I don't think he was like really super enthusiastic about Paris either. Like we
Okay.
we kind of wanted to go to France, and Paris was just going to be our like test.
Wait to get
Because
there.
well, one, because we didn't speak. He had a little bit of French. I just had French for food, but I had no other French. Like I could order myself whatever it is that I wanted, no problem. But
Yeah.
beyond that, I didn't have any French. So we kind of needed to know if we were going to be able to learn the language, if I was going to be able to find work, because I was not looking to be a stay-at-home wife. I could have been, but I had absolutely zero desire to do that.
Yeah.
I need to be busy, like, and I didn't want to have kids, so I didn't have like kids keeping me busy or something like that. So I knew I would have to be able to work and to remain productive for myself. So we weren't sure if I was going to be able to develop my career, and I was switching careers because basically
Mm.
when we met, I left being a chef, and I was testing out lots of things between those 3 years of where I might want to go. I wasn't exactly sure about that at that point. And
Yeah.
so when we went to Paris, we thought, well, at least this is a metropolitan city. There should be at least a level of English that would give us a minimum quality of life to be able to
Mhm.
meet people and to do things like that. So that's why we decided to start there at that time.
How long did you live in Paris?
I lived in Paris about 5 years. Yeah.
You breathe heavy. You know what you sound like? You sound like Dutch. It sounds like people are like, "How long did you live in Amsterdam?" Well, now I live in Leiden, so my life is better. Or now I live in The Hague and my life is better.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, like the first 3 years I lived in Paris, like I partied we were in our 20s,
Right.
so I had more energy than I knew what to do with. Like, well, I could barely sit down, girl. So, and then I had started my own business in Paris, and I was really fortunate because I was always putting myself out there. I was never afraid to put myself out there. So I
Mm,
was forcing myself always into situations so that I could meet people and connect with the local population. Like, and I was reading books about how to integration and culture and
mm,
intercultural communication. Like, I needed to figure out for myself the quickest way for me to get into this life, right? And I arrived to do that. And I mean, my first 3 years, we partied like it was amazing. Paris was
yeah.
amazing. We had an amazing time. But around the fourth or the fifth year, it's just like New York. You get tired of being crammed into the subway with your face against the, face against the glass, people bumping
Right?
up against you, their armpits stinking in. It's just like you're like, you know what? I'm tired. You're like, I'm just tired. Like, I gotta get out of here. And and we had bought a house, and we were both making a very good living, but to get, a nice big house in Paris, you need to have millions, right? You need to have
Yeah.
millions
Yeah.
of dollars. So we just wanted to, I think at the end of that 5 years, we just wanted a different quality of life. So I think we got out of it what we needed to. I had a successful business there, and it really gave me the confidence that I needed to think like, okay, I can permanently live in France if I wanted to. Like, if I'm able to start a business, I'm able
Mm.
to, make the social life that we have and all of that, then we're good. So I think at that point we kind of just took the money and ran pretty much.
What kind of from a career standpoint, what did you transition to? Because obviously at this point you've now become an entrepreneur. So what were you doing?
Well, at the time when I first arrived, I was, I just went. I had like 6 different CVs with all my different skills. Like
Yes, as a career
everything I've
counselor, I'm
ever.
very excited. Yes. You need to have more than one because you
Yeah,
once again are ahead of the curve. And
yeah,
I tell
yes,
people you need to have
girl.
multiple ones. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, I had multiple ones. Like, for every skill that I had, like, because I was going to school to learn French, so I needed to find jobs that I could do around taking my French courses, right?
Okay.
And so, I mean, that could have been anything from waitressing to
Mhm.
cleaning to personal assistant to receptionist to, it was whatever I could, while I was
Yeah.
going to school to learn French, it was whatever I could do that would go around learning. I didn't care about what job I had at that point. I was caring about learning the language because I
Yeah.
thought, like, I'm never going to actually be able to have the full enjoyment of this opportunity until I can really connect with people, and the language is a big part of that. So, and I'm dyslexic, so I knew it was going to be a big
Mhm.
obstacle for me, and that
Yeah.
this was something that I couldn't wait to do, and that I had to do it right away. So I was willing to sacrifice, for the couple of years that it took me to uh, really start to integrate the language, to just find the work that showed up. I mean, and also I did logistics in the military, so I also worked in a logistics company. And
Mm.
in the end, how I started my business, and this is a crazy story. I was like an admin job. I was like, I need something that's more like behind a desk, because I was running all over Paris doing all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. And I was like, I need something a bit more calmer, because I decided to go to the Sorbonne. That's what I
Mhm.
recommend. Go to the Sorbonne. Don't waste your money on all these other schools, because I had went to like 4 different French schools and they were crap. The
Oh my
Sorbonne
god.
is the best. You should just
Yeah.
pay your money, learn to speak French properly, and get on with your
Right.
life.
I mean, but that's what they do. They're a renowned institution. So, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once I did that, I was looking for, jobs who were looking for like English speakers, and there was a lady, an astrologist, who's actually a pretty famous astrologist. Her name is Yasmin Bolin, and she like writes for Mary Claire and all this stuff. And she was looking for a personal assistant, and to get the job, you had to send in your date of birth with your time of birth. and she was going to pick people from the interview from their astrology chart. So I'm from LA. I'm like, why not? It's like, you never know. In LA, all kinds of stuff happens. You never know when an opportunity is going to look like, right? I'm not discriminative of an opportunity until I know all the details. You know what I'm saying? Because the job looked good. Like what she was asking for, like fit around my school hours. The pay was good. It was skills, the things that she needed, which was mostly administrative stuff. It wasn't like me reading people's charts or anything. That was her thing. So what she needed was mostly administrative. So I was like, I can do those things. And it was near my school. So it like ticked a lot of boxes. So I was excited. I was like, I'll send my birth date and time of birth, no problem. I was like, let's hope our stars are aligned. I was like, so I get this job.
Sorry. This is a very LA, like I don't.
Yeah, okay. It's an LA. It's sorry, right?
Sorry, right.
And so she said when she read my chart, she said she got tingles all over. And I went for the interview and we hit it off like a house on fire, and we're still friends to this day, and it's because of her I started my business. So basically what happened was I was a personal assistant for her, but she was from Australia. So she would go back like 6 months out of the year, and she would rent her apartment, or family members would come, and she asked me like, could you open the apartment for them? And I used to help her organize and clean her apartment because I used to have a hard time focusing and working. And I'm like, why don't you just let me help you clear this space so that we can work better together? And then she just would feel bad when she would have to leave. So she started to ask her friends, do you need a personal assistant? She also organizes. And then before I knew it, I had like 6 clients who I was doing this for, who lived just like her and was also leaving and looking for someone to kind of manage their apartment when they left. And then I was like, I might as well just turn this into a business. And that's what I did. And my business was called Organize It 123. And in the end, I had 7 employees, anywhere between 50 and 75 apartments on my books. And that's what we did. I basically provided apartment management services, personal assistants, and cleaners for Anglophones who were sort of had their second homes in Paris. So, I did that for about 5 years, and it was very successful. So, yeah, that small unusual opportunity created a livelihood and a business for me that pretty much changed my life at that point.
Okay, this is related. Now I'm just curious. I am just curious. So what is your sign?
I'm a Virgo.
Me too. Yeah, I was like, you were talking, and I was like, oh my God, I bet she's a Virgo. She's a Virgo. I bet she's a Virgo. What's your
My birthday is August 25th. I'm on the cusp.
September 13th.
Okay. Right.
Okay. No,
my best friend is, my sister was September 5th, and I think my best friend is September 21st. Let me give me the line, but yeah, I think.
Yeah. Oh my God, you were talking, and you know what triggered me is when you said, I can't, I need to focus. I need to clean the space. I need it to be organized. Yeah. And I went, is she speaking my love language? She's a Virgo. She's totally a Virgo. Oh my God, she's a Virgo. That is hilarious.
Yeah, and that's why I always tell people, like, when you're moving abroad, you don't put yourself in a box, especially if you're in the position where you need to feel like you need to learn the language first before you can actually get what you want. It's like you have no idea what can come out of any opportunity that didn't look like an opportunity at all. Most people that I coach, it was something that they were totally resistant against that ended up being the thing that launched them to their fulfillment where they are. So I think when you're abroad, you have to be flexible. You have to be open to things not looking the way that you think they should. Things don't always show up the way you think they are. And lots of times people push away opportunities because they want things to look a certain way. And you have to be open to opportunity walking up to you and not being discriminatory. It's investigating. I always tell people, if you're curious.
Ooh, that's a good word.
Yeah, if you're curious, like I'm a serious person, so I don't if I would have went to that astrology, if I would have went to her house and she wasn't actually a serious businesswoman, which she is. I mean, she was a journalist before. What she does is very, very serious. So she's written books. She's a
Yeah.
very accomplished person. And if that wouldn't have been a serious person, I wouldn't have followed through with that. But I was
Hmm.
curious enough to investigate to see, you know, does this opportunity live up to what I think
Yeah.
that I see. So I always give myself the right to be curious. It doesn't mean that I have to make a decision in that moment. It means I need to get as much information as I can, and then I can make the best decision possible for me.
Can I, at this point, and I'm curious, obviously, as someone who's a Black woman,
Yeah.
how have you, I guess, in the spaces that like you've lived in, and obviously, I always say this, particularly for those who are coming from the United States, we know there's a particular history. We have a
Yes.
particular
Yes.
racial history.
Yeah. Yeah.
How have you, living in France, really navigated? Like, how have you sort of observed, I guess, kind of race relations living in France, and have you ever felt a, a certain type of way because of how you present as a Black woman, or has it just been, look, I've been very fortunate that people have just kind of rolled with me as I am?
Well, I mean, I would say I think it all depends on. I think a lot of has to depend on how you grow up. Now, when I grew up, my
Mhm.
parents, my great grandparents, my grandparents, they were from the South. They were like from Georgia, Mississippi,
Yeah.
and that generation, they don't talk to you about nothing. They don't talk to children about stuff. They didn't talk about race. They didn't talk about racism. All they taught us was that you need to be smart and you need to work and you need to
Hmm.
mind your own business. You don't need to care what anybody thinks about you. You don't have time for that. You need to focus on what you're doing. So all the women in my family, were educated, were teachers, they had good jobs, they all own their own houses. And we
Hmm.
did not talk about race that much in our house because you were supposed to be
Hmm.
focusing on what you needed to do. Not You don't go toward the people who's trying to hold you down. You need to find the space where you can grow. That's where you
Yeah.
need to be looking. And my parents used to always tell me that no one can hide your spirit. So make sure you
Mm.
focus on making your spirit as bright as possible. Go within. Make sure you working on who you are, that you transcend all your skin, all the boundaries, all the colors. And I think that's how I pretty much live my life. And so maybe I experienced racism, but I might not have been paying attention to it as much as maybe
Mhm.
some other people, but I didn't actually care. I'm from the States and I needed to create what I needed to create to make my life happen. And that's what I was focused on. Like whatever everybody else thought of me, I just didn't have time for that. I was on the
Yeah.
grind. You know what I mean? I didn't, even if I had to create my business with all Black people, that's what it would happen. But what I was focusing on was what I needed to create. I didn't actually have that much time to think about me as a Black woman in this
Hmm.
space. I thought about myself as somebody trying to create a life, and that's what I focused on. I would say more when I came to the south of France, and I've been here a little while now, and people ask that question. I would say the only thing that sometime when I feel that weight of racism, I wouldn't say racism, but I would say the eyes of of countries that colonize people
Hmm.
is they I don't think they know that they're doing it, but when like they ask you where are you from, and if I say I'm American, they go no, but where are you from? I'm like, what the hell you mean? Like, do you not know
Right.
American history? Like, they brought us over on a boat. We don't know where we're from. Like some people do. But for me, this is a very sensitive and can be a quite painful question. And what I have to educate people on is that a lot of us don't know where we came from. We know we came from a slave port from one of these four places in
Yeah.
Africa. But this is a very painful question for some of us because we can't answer it. And you insisting on trying to find my origins when I myself don't know them. And they've been mixed up between
Yeah.
Indians and slave masters and
Yeah.
who God knows what. You have no idea really what you are, as far as
Yeah.
that is concerned. And sometimes that question in France, they're obsessed with that question.
Mm.
And sometimes it just that would irritate me because it's a question I can't answer.
Right. Right. And I wonder, I think you said it perfectly where you're like countries that have colonized places. I wonder because when you look at immigration at some of these other places, folks are like first gen,
Yeah.
right? So if a black or brown person is there, you can right, Pakistani, Ghanaian, whatever. And I it is still amazing to me that the with the prox with how far the US is from some of the places where people came from, that people don't
Yeah.
realize people can't often just give you, especially if you are a black person who has
Yeah.
been like it. Because I'm first gen, so I don't count. But if your family has been here, if you are a black person and you
Yeah.
didn't come in the most recent wave, your family has
Yeah.
been here for so long
Yeah.
that no, people can't just rattle off, oh, we're
Yeah.
this, we're that, because
Yeah. And I think if you asked me and I told you, why you keep asking me?
right, right,
I gave you my answer, right? I said I'm
right,
American because that's where I feel like I'm from. If I felt like I was from somewhere else, I would say, "Oh, my family's from Senegal, but
yeah,
I grew up in the United States." Because
yeah.
most people who do have a descent that they know about, they say it
They
first.
say it. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because they know it.
Absolutely.
So I think, and I mean, as time went on, I had to get away from getting upset about it and trying to open a conversation for people to
Yeah,
understand like how that could be a painful question in some way for certain people, and
yeah,
that when someone gives you an answer you should take it.
yeah,
And I think for me, more in France, it's more about classism than, and I think the racism just falls inside of the classism.
yeah,
But and I think people who come from economically challenging situations always have less opportunity to education. And in France, if you do not have the opportunity to education, your chances of having a successful career are extremely limited.
yeah,
So, and unfortunately, people who tend to be marginalized as far as economical things go are people who happen to be, brown skin. But there's lots of poor white people around here too. So,
right,
you know.
right. I don't know why this is always a shock to people. I'm like, there are plenty of poor white people. I mean, I don't want anybody to be
Yeah,
poor, but there are plenty of poor white people, but that's not the first
yeah,
of anywhere.
yeah,
So do
yeah,
you
yeah.
and I'm curious, and I don't know if you can answer this question, and if you can't, that's fine. Because you are an expat coach, or just because you've been an expat for so long, and I've kind of had this conversation with other people who do coaching who are black. But do you find, particularly then, and I say this because you are American, do you find in the light of like how you sort of described you see yourself in navigating racism and what you can and cannot do you
Mm.
find yourself that you have to sometimes have conversations maybe with black folks who are coming from the States and saying, look, this might be a different environment for these reasons? And I mean even casually, not even necessarily coaching, but in terms of, okay, blackness is seen in a certain way or received in a certain way, maybe in parts of the US, but you know
Yeah,
what? Now
because
we're in a different environment.
because something we do in the States, like when you watch like stand-up comedy, we
Mhm.
always saying like black people do this and white people do this. That doesn't exist here,
Yeah,
right? Everybody's doing the same
they
stuff,
do what they do.
you do what they do.
Yeah,
And like people who come from Senegal, they got their stuff because here it's Africans. They're
right.
nothing like African Americans. So
Absolutely.
yeah, like, and so even that was a culture shock for me, being
Mm.
exposed to actual African culture. That really
Mhm.
happened for me once I got here.
Yeah.
And then I realized how un-African I actually was. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't even know
Right.
why I got a hyphen on mine, like, because I don't know nothing.
Sorry, that's so funny. I mean, right,
Seriously though, like I got so much education about African music and African
right.
culture once
Especially in
I
France. Yeah. No,
yeah,
especially
once
in
I
France.
moved to France. So, even for me, it was a huge cultural understanding of what's,
What's
inherently
black?
part of my roots,
Yeah.
of where, eh, my, origins come
Yeah.
from. So it, I don't know, to be honest with you. I do not have very many conversations about
Yeah.
race ever.
Yeah.
I always make people focus on what it is they're trying to create, and they need to
Mhm.
leave the rest. It's waste of energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a waste of energy. You can't change people's minds and how they feel, but what you can do is find the people who feel you and to
Mm,
grow that space as big as possible. And if people, I know people do have wounds, and if that's what you're looking for, that's just going to be extra baggage that's going to drag you
yeah.
down while you're trying to create whatever it is that you're trying to create. I
Yeah.
think if you want to look deeper into racial issues, what I tell people, and if you have a real issue with that, is establish yourself first, get stable, focus on what you can do, and when you are where you want to be, then you can look into sort of, and I think that's what happened to me. Once I
Hmm.
established myself, then I started to be able to have those conversations when I went to dinner parties about, people asking me that question, and
Hmm.
to really open up and to start to speak about colonization and what that means and how that has affected people
Hmm.
across generations. And it has to be a conversation, and that's all I'll ever tell people. Like, I've spoken to very racist, when I was in Australia, some these people, whoo, like I heard some racist comments, like, and I've been to the South, so you get used to, you used to hearing things, but like
Yeah.
people would say things to me that they thought were a compliment, like genuinely, like they
Right.
thought what they said to me was a compliment, and it
Right.
definitely was not. But
Right.
because I don't look for other people for approval of who I am, it doesn't offend me. So I can have a conversation with this person, and I would have conversation, I guess, with so-called races, to
Yeah.
try to open that feeling of understanding, to understand, like, why that might be offensive to someone. Like, do you understand, that
Why? Yeah.
I understand you're trying to give me a compliment, so I'm gonna try to take it as one, but at the same
But,
time,
but,
I think you might want to be aware of the
hear that.
little,
Right. Because you may say that to the
condescendingness
wrong person and they may not be as
yeah, they may
helpful.
go all the way left on you. You know what I
All
mean? Like,
right.
all the way to the
All.
left. But I think that the only way you get to understanding is being able to have a conversation. And I think I've sat down with people who've had some very sort of maybe naive views about race, and the only way we were able to educate each other was through having a conversation. So if I get offended and I get angry, we can no longer have a conversation.
Yeah.
So what I do is I'm okay with who I am, and I don't need anyone's approval, nor am I looking for it, and nor do
Yeah.
I need it, right?
Yeah.
So I've never been, eh, regardless of the circumstances, it's kind of like I'd be Harriet Tubman. If I had to dig myself out of this mug with a spoon and a fork, I'm gonna find my freedom.
Right. I'm sorry. Man. So, well, let me, and I think you've given me a really good segue where I kind of wanted to pivot, because as you've been talking about identity and race and in the space,
Hmm.
how have you, obviously you're American. Now, is your husband French?
He is French, yes.
So how have you kind of navigated now a cross-cultural relationship, right? So, and you've
Right.
had several before, but now, you're in France, you're obviously married to a French man, and then you've
Yeah.
got your little one who is
Yeah.
I'm assuming the little one's French. There's probably a hint of American,
Yeah.
but French.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
French. Yeah. Yeah.
So have there been things that you've realized within you that you're like, what I do is very American and what he does is very French, and we're trying to meet in the middle? Or has it just been this happy medium in terms of you've got your own little world?
I think the only time that I remember how American is when I'm on the phone with my family and they like yelling. They're like
Right.
yelling down the phone. You're like, he'd be like, why are they speaking so loud? I'm like,
Oh,
I can't explain that. I don't know. I don't know. Black folks yell at each other over
yeah,
there.
that's
Like,
right. That might not even be American though, because my family does that.
that's true. It might just be African.
It might be black people. That actually might be black people. That might act as a group, right?
Yeah, and I think it's just small things. Like, French people don't snack. Like, Americans snack. We snack.
Yes.
So like around 4 o'clock, I'm looking for something. I'm like, can I
Right.
get something to? And he's like, oh no, you shouldn't snack. Between meals. Like they
Sir,
don't.
sir, sir, sir. I'm gonna say it respectfully. Yes, you do. This is this is how we sustain ourselves between meals, because we haven't had a meal in like an hour, and so we need to keep it going.
Yeah. So I would just say it's very small things like that. And I mean, as far as music is concerned, I mean, my husband, I like all kinds of music, but when I still need to get down, so it's like
Yeah.
I still need I still need to back it up somewhere.
Right. I mean, ratchet is in the DNA. Like, I don't know what I was listening to the other day, and I said, I haven't heard that. It was like down south, like, you know what I mean? It was like Joe
like
just, it was like
little
Texas.
John and the East Side Boys.
Boys. Yeah, it was all of that. And I said, I'm too old for this, but still.
Still, it's in there, and you be trying to deny it.
Right.
They put the beats on, and you be like,
yes,
yeah. So I would say mostly the music. I think even though they have hip hop and R&B and all that stuff out here, everything is sort of a copy of our culture, and you kind of understand that American culture, I think, what you realize, has affected so much of the world.
Yeah.
And that has given us a sort of privilege, to be quite honest, that we tend to be quite comfortable because most movies are from America.
Right.
Music, as sort as pop culture is going and hip hop is going, that's the majority of that is American. So I just think now they got cupcakes and donuts, and Burger King arrived in France. When I arrived here, they weren't allowed to have Burger King in Marseille.
Really?
Because they don't allow, and that's another difference. In France, they do not, they only allow a certain amount of fast food chains.
God bless them.
So at the time, there was a French one called Quick. And so while Quick existed, Burger King couldn't be in. What did Burger King do? They bought Quick, right? So now there's no more Quick. Now there's no more Quick, and now there's McDonald's and Burger King. But I think for me and my husband, I mean, I'm of a certain age at this point. I'm on this is my third marriage. So I think we align more on values and sort of the lifestyle that we wanted to live. And that was a very deep conversation before we got married. He's always been a very open person, and I never, like, race has never been a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I feel respected and loved, and his family loves me, and he's always done everything to do as much as he can for my family. That's about the extent of that for me in my situation anyway.
And what drew you guys to living in Marseille?
So basically, after Paris, I moved to Bordeaux, and I stayed in Bordeaux for about a year. But then me and my second husband decided to divorce. And so the woman who helped me start my business in Paris, she had an apartment in London. And she was like, you should go to London. And, while you're rebuilding your life, because I had decided to go back to school to get a degree and to get my coaching certification and to do all of that. So I spent 3 years in London. And after you spend 3 years in London, like with the rain and the gray, I was like, I need to go back to France, but I'm going to the south of France. And I had some friends from Paris who had moved to Marseille. And so I came to visit Marseille a couple of times. And each time I came, I wanted to stay longer and longer. And I guess the last time I came, when I was thinking about moving back to France, I was like, well, if I can find work, I'll stay. And that's just basically what happened. I came, 2 weeks later, I found work, and I've been here ever since.
Now that you've been in France for a while, what do you love about living there?
The lifestyle. I think French people value time over money. And I think that's the exact opposite of the United States. And time is the only thing you can't buy. And it's the most valuable thing you have. And I think people have to understand the depths of what you're trading your time for. And I'm not willing to trade my time for things that are not meaningful to me. So in France, I have time, and people love taking time and spending time together.
Yeah.
And I think to have good wine and to have good cheese and to have good produce in those beautiful French markets, you have to take, that's why there's no GMOs.
Yeah.
They use 300 less pesticides in their food than the United States. You have lots of rules around how people eat and why we have a reduced rate of obesity and all kinds of things like that, because
Yeah.
it's the quality of life that is, it's not the quantity, it's the quality.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the kind of life that I want to live, that I don't need a lot of things, but I want the things that I do have to be good things. And I want as much as my time as I can have as possible. And I think French people don't put anything more valuable than that.
Mm.
And I think as soon as they can explore and travel, and they have a great passion for music and art and poetry and just so many different things. Like they're, in the States, what you do is who you are. In
Yeah.
France, it's what you're interested in is who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's a much more deeper context. And I think it gives you more room to show different facets of yourself. But I think it's also very, France is also a very complex culture, and it can be a very complex culture to crack into.
Yeah.
I think as a coach, I think the sense of belonging is the biggest pain point for most people who move here.
Okay.
So I think, when you're picking a country, it's just like picking a partner. Your values have to line up, and that country has to represent the type of lifestyle that you want to live. And France just happens to do that for me.
The Global Chatter is an audio project of the Black Expat and is hosted by me, Amanda Bates. And you can find it wherever you get your podcast. To learn more about this show or the Black Expat, visit theblackexpat.com.